Hey guys, welcome to the Centre Bounce. Today we are talking about the preseason game between the Tigers and Big J's North Melbourne Kangaroos. Let's go. Big J, how happy were you with this outing? I thought you guys did really well.
Oh, man, I'm happy that we didn't get slaughtered by 100 points like Hawthorn did. I think there was real potential for that to happen, especially against like a contender and a lot of North Melbourne's really good players like Simpkin and Cunnington out. But yeah, the boys stood up under Clarkson, did really well. There was some things that we struggled with, but to come out of it and only down by 2 points, obviously it comes down to, hey, was Richmond putting in their 100%? But you can only play the team that the opposition brings that week.
Of course. And you say you guys lost by 2 points. The final score were 11-9-75 to 10-13-73. So you're looking at that. You look at that stat sheet. You guys let a few opportunities slip with your inaccuracy there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things we have to work on. I think the breeze was a big factor as well. I'm pretty sure one end had a bad breeze compared to the other one. So when we swapped, that kind of thing. But, you know, that's circumstantial. You're professional AFL players. Whichever side the wind's blowing shouldn't affect you that much. Just poor decision-making, poor kicking kind of hurt us in the end.
Yeah, as I say, bad kicking is bad football. So having watched this game, I'm sure you've watched this game really closely, given that it's your boys. What did you think stood out the most from the North Melbourne team?
Oh, mate, a lot of everything, really. I think they just came in and put a lot of effort, something we really haven't had under Noble. There was some real standout players, but I think just overall kind of the effort and the game plan. There definitely was a move to move the ball a lot quicker up the ground. And then when it was in the forward half, set up kind of that defensive field like Richmond does, like Geelong does, that kind of thing, to really bring the pressure and stop the ball from escaping. Transitions up the field has been something that we've really struggled with defending against. So if we can lock in there, that's kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Were there any players in particular, though, in general? We're talking here Supercoach. A lot of Supercoach players are looking to maybe get some North Melbourne players across the ground. I know there are quite a few that have been discussed, but have there been any that you think are really sure things?
Well, first off, I think if Will Phillips wasn't a lock in your team, he must be. Because this kid at 150, I think 156 or 158K, he's playing majority midfield at North Melbourne. He's not playing anywhere else. He's linking up in everything. He's almost at every stoppage. Like, boy, oh boy, there's players to come back, but they're not pushing him out of the team. Harry Sheasel also did really well, kind of playing up at either ground. I don't think at 198K he's really relevant Supercoach-wise, but as a player, as kind of someone exciting who could take away a little bit of the negative effects of losing Horn Francis in the trade period, he's definitely someone to watch there. There are a couple of other players. Comben did quite well. Zurhaar played through the middle, and Paul Curtis kind of played through there as well. I think North's trying to look at a bit of a hybrid, like DeGoey Stringer type, and put some of these powerful forwards in the middle. And, history has shown that they can do some really good bursts from the stoppage type stuff. LDU was fantastic as always. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, hopefully next week with Cunnington and Simpkin back. But I don't see anyone really pushing him out of the team.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of, I guess now might be a decent time to show a bit of the CBAs, like what you're talking about in relation to all those players that you've mentioned that are running through the middle. We've got in North here, you've got 81.5% of those CBAs after 4 quarters to LDU. Phillips at 66.7, Zurhaar also at 66.7. You clearly had a lot going for you in relation to the number of CBA attendances that you had for these great players. Would you have Zurhaar? Zurhaar's at a similar price point to a guy like Zeeble. Do you think that he is someone, given this percentage of CBAs, do you think he's a genuine Supercoach option for your forward line, or do you think that this would significantly change when Cunnington and Simpkin are back in?
I don't know if it's going to change too much. Obviously, something's got to reduce, and it's probably him a little bit. But Supercoach-wise, I just don't think the dynamic of it kind of works. Like DeGoey and Stringer, they're not really Supercoach relevant options. even if they take some mid-time and they kick a goal here and there. Supercoach-wise, they're not great. They're more of a really good at football kind of dynamic player. Same with the Curtis, as I was saying, Paul Curtis, second-year player, taking a bit of that time. Liam Shields has come in doing that as well. I think he might end up being best 22. And then Tom Powell. I know there's been some hype about him, but at 300K, it's probably not the best thing. How about we talk about Richmond before we get into their CBAs?
Yeah, sure, we can talk about Richmond. And I mean, the CBA's already I suppose, paint a picture. What sort of new look team that Duma Hardwick is leading over there with both Taranto and Hopper, the two great acquisitions for the Tigers coming across from GWS. They were terrific. And I think Taranto in particular, he really showed some great signs in his first head out for the yellow and black. He just oozes class. He just feels like he really belongs. He's really priming himself up to be one of the premier, mids of the competition. And he would also push forward and kick some goals. He could have had 5 goals to his name at the end of this game. He was really powerful and he was really quite skillful as well. The commentators really were well and truly going crazy and really excited every time he was near it. And Hopper did himself absolutely no, I suppose, disservice. He was very serviceable, was great. And you can see due to the number, the percentage of his CBAs that they are both well and truly locked in. And a noticeable absence from those CBA percentages is Cochin. We saw a lot of forward Cochin, and that's going to be the case moving forward. But there was also another superstar that isn't in the top 5 CBA attendances, someone that is quite famous for his fend-offs, right?
Yeah. Big Dusty Martin, I think, is going to be playing a lot more forward time. I'm going back to Cochin. He's kind of got a big Kane Corns has got a bit of a bet going on with him and how many goals he's going to kick in that forward line. Hopefully it happens in the first few weeks and Corns can get stuffed. So, see what happens there. But I think Richmond's really setting themselves up. Pre-2017, they obviously weren't a very good team. They had a lot of their struggles and things like that. They're really wary of coming back to that style again. They don't want it to happen. So they're putting in all these things in place, playing a lot of kids through the middle, playing a lot of their new recruits through the middle, guys who are across the right age, who aren't 30, kind of mid-age. So a lot of Taranto and Hopper, even Jaden Short, Prestia and Dow, a lot of these kind of younger players who, well, comparatively to Dusty Martin and Cochin, who are going to be the next generation worth of things. So you'll see it a little bit with Geelong. You'll see it a lot with Richmond now. The more mature age players, the guys who are really strong, playing a lot of forward time, because defenders can't stop Dusty Martin, right? Defenders are going to struggle to stop Cochin. These midfield beast players offering a lot up there. They will rotate a little bit through the middle, but majority forward, allowing these players like a Hopper and Taranto, who should be by now locks in your Supercoach team, to play their majority roles and still benefit on both ways.
Yeah, the Richmond Tigers are a really interesting proposition, especially when you compare their team this year to what it was like in all these other years that have gone past. You can never really say that the biggest strength for Richmond was their midfield. A lot, you would say, was their ability to defend. They had amazing players, spearheaded by Rance and Hooley. These guys who have retired are no longer there. Their forward line was also really exciting when they had Rioli playing up there. They also obviously had a young Jack Rewald. They also had a younger Lynch, who were spearheads of that forward line. Their midfield has always been serviceable, has always been decent, led by Cochin. But I think this year is the year where you can start to say that the midfield is the strongest part of the ground for the Richmond Tigers. It's not so much their defense, which is still developing and growing younger players like Gibkiss, for example, and relying a lot on Grimes to continue doing what he does. And obviously Hooley is gone and they're now playing short a lot more through the midfield. But, you can see overall that I think without a doubt the strongest part of the ground has got to be their midfield.
Definitely. They've got some real good ball users through there as well. Something that good ball users with extreme endurance as well. Something they've kind of missed. I know there's always been the joke about, hey, when's Tom Green coming to Richmond? And I think with Hopper in there now, they don't really need that anymore. They've kind of got their Tom Green, maybe not as good as a contested beast, but still really serviceable for them there.
And Tom Green has also extended his contract to stay with the Giants for a bit longer. So
contracts don't matter anymore, Joe.
Contracts don't matter anymore.
Brody Grundy left with like 6 years left on his contract. You know, contracts don't matter.
Yeah, but that wasn't his call to make. You know this. Collingwood pushed him out. He wanted to stay. But we're digressing. We're moving away from the genuine. Now, I mentioned this guy before. Zeeble, 55% of the kick-ins. And McDonald had 45% of the kick-ins. So these two really shared the kick-in duties. Do you see this percentage continue? Or do you really think Zeeble could be a genuine forward option for us?
Look, I spoke with Chris from Supercoach Insider, watched that video and kind of expressed my feelings on Zeeble not continuing his position from what we saw in the intra-club game. This game definitely showed a different side of his game plan, of Clarkson's game plan, having him being kind of that kick-out type player. He did do it last year. He did do it the year before. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I know McDonald and him, I think, will be the two guys that do it. Supercoach-wise, it still feels in my heart that it's a bit of a trap. But if he comes out and scores 100, 110 in the next game, he's a real watch a real watch and see. And do you take the gamble on him versus someone like a Fife, for example? I don't think Zeeble will be a top 6 forward, just with a lot of the players who are going to get DPP. We've also talked about the awesome foursome, those guys priced at like 110. But he could be a servable bench player, especially with him probably getting DPP forward and defense.
I think a lot of people were hoping that this guy could be a Cornelia of this year or a Brody of this year in terms of being like a sort of mid-pricer that ends up being a keeper for the rest of the year. But I think given just how much they use McDonald and the fact that they're going to be having a lot of people go through that back line, even a guy like Goda, who we haven't discussed in this episode a lot, but he really showed some great signs, and a few of the things that he did on the field were really, really impressive. So it's and there's still, of course, Hall to come back as well. So obviously there's a few cooks in the kitchen back there, and I think a lot of people have come to the, I suppose, belief or view now that he is someone that you're hoping to have as a moneymaker, make you some quick cash early on, and then end up flipping him to a guy like Gawn, for example, who is likely to drop in price and could well and truly get DPP status given his ruck split with Grundy, for example, or a Shrek or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think Zeeble is definitely one for people to definitely, as you say, keep a close eye on, because he could be a real moneymaker for us, and the mid prices aren't the best in the forward line.
No, if you're looking for an F6, I think you could do, or F5, F6, I think you could do a lot worse than him. He's only priced at like a 64. So gets to an 80 average, gets to an 85. You're making enough money to offload him with a rookie, even to a more expensive midfield premium. So someone to watch. I'm not keen on the pick, but, wait and see. It's really interesting to see kind of the makeup of the Richmond kick-ins as well. Rioli's someone who I haven't really thought much about, but someone has to take him now that Short's moving to more midfield. Last year, I think we saw a lot of Short move into midfield comparatively like a Crisp, kind of both halfback type players who moved into the midfield. They love his ability to really pinpoint players across the board, and I think that's kind of where he sits in with them. So Rioli at just over 500K could be a decent pick. I don't know if he pushes out day cost, but if you're looking for someone else or someone to upgrade to, really, Vastelin as well, and then Ralph Smith kind of playing off that halfback like he did last year. Was there anyone else, Joe?
No, that's about it, I think, in terms of the really relevant players. I think we've discussed everybody there. A massive thank you to Matt Forrest, who we're referring to on Twitter for all of these statistics. You're doing the Lord's work. We really appreciate it so much. To take the time out and to share this, obviously for free. Guys, we're going to put the link to his Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please, guys, make sure you go ahead and follow him. We wouldn't be presenting you with these stats otherwise. It'd just be eye test. Of course, eye test is really important, but I think having some statistics to also back it up is really, really important. So massive thank you to Matt. All right, guys, that brings Yep, that brings our discussion on the North Melbourne versus Richmond practice game to a close. Thank you guys so much for coming in and watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We are pumping out the content as much as possible during this preseason to make sure that you get all the information that you need to get the best possible start for your preseason and your Supercoach team.
Yeah. Remember, guys, as well, we've got our Supercoach group where you guys can win some amazing prizes. I'll put the link and the instructions for that down below. Here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you don't have to. Bye for now.